statistical model, once it's been developed as a robust model, it's good enough for decision AI. And that's a misnomer.
According to you, what constitutes of responsible AI?
Accountability. Model must be held accountable for its performance, for its accuracy. Another big piece is remediation.
How does trust or other factors of responsible AI drive return on investment?
Driving efficiencies, reducing costs, delivering business objectives, and the promised ROI in the business case.
How does responsible AI need to evolve with the changing landscape of AI itself?
The basics of how humans and machines coexist remain the same. And responsible AI is the glue that binds.
Welcome everyone to the next episode of the A Media House podcast Simulated Reality. Today we have with us the founder and CEO of EazyML, Deepak Dube. Hi Deepak, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, Kashyap. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for asking. Thank you for making the time to join us, Deepak. Talking about responsible AI, and when you and your team reached out to me to talk about responsible AI, I think one of the first things that we agreed on is that it's a very vast topic. But before we dive into what specific we want to have a conversation around this specific topic, I want to understand, why did you want to talk about responsible AI? Why are you so passionate about it?
Because the thought is that statistical model, once it's been developed as a robust model, it's good enough for decision AI. And that's a misnomer. Unless just the model itself, unless it has a supporting cast, a halo around it of elements of responsible AI, the model itself is not sufficient in terms of delivering the enterprise business objectives and the promised ROI. I'll elaborate a little bit. Most AI projects fail, and this is just to exemplify what I just said about responsible AI as a supporting cast of features, functions that support the statistical model for decision AI. Most AI projects fail. Why? Because of lack of trust. The subject matter expert disagrees sometimes with the prediction, even from the best of the model, and then starts to second guess the model. Why? Because it's a black box. It's making these predictions. They don't know why they disagree and what were the reasons for that prediction. They cannot reconcile the differences. And so all the promises of driving efficiencies in a business process and reducing costs and delivering business objectives, cost and promised ROI are stillborn. So it's important to have all the features, functions. In particular, the example that I just said of trust requires transparency of the core statistical model, of something that is delivered by responsible AIs, explainability or explainable AI. That's one of the constituents. So in so many words, unless you have responsible AI, there is no trust.
I understand. I think one of the things that you're trying to highlight is establishing trust with the client. And while there are various mediums to do that, your model efficiency through AI and some of the parameters which can bring more visibility for them into the decision-making process of this AI is something that will help the right stakeholders build more trust around it, right? According to you, what constitutes of responsible AI? You just mentioned transparency and explainability as some of the parameters which are important and critical to responsible AI, but it's a really vast topic. How do you holistically approach responsible AI?
Transparency which is explainable AI for models or augmented intelligence for data, is one such key component. Then another key component is accountability. The model must be held accountable for accuracy. The fact that it's performing today and doesn't, as 6 months from now, 8 months from now, as the dynamic business environment changes, the model must be a good citizen and alert the users of this possibility. Accountability. Model must be held accountable for its performance, for its accuracy. That's another key component of what's a responsible AI. Then another key component is compliance. Your model, as a good citizen of your decision AI workflow, the process itself, must be compliant with the regulatory requirements. Otherwise, it's a major problem. And transparency certainly helps there. Yet another big piece is remediation. That is frequently overlooked, actually, Kashyap. Here's the adage. If you just state a problem without a solution, then you're part of the problem. So imagine a model that has just made a doomsday forecast. An unfavorable outcome has been forecast. The quality has dipped for your manufacturing process. We disapprove the loan to this guy. The pharmaceutical is going to lose significant market share because biosimilars are going to be released now, right? Whatever that unfavorable outcome is. Just predicting that. And so now the recipient of that information says, okay, so now what do we do to fix it? That remediation of an unfavorable outcome to where you can make it favorable is also a key component of responsible AI implemented in EazyML by counterfactual inferencing. And then last, you have, of course, you have a component of fairness in responsible AI, which is based on data bias and its alleviation. So some of the constituent parts of what that halo constitutes.
No, I think this is really helpful. But one of the things that I want to ask you as a follow-up to this is your conversations with customers. I'm sure as a product company working specifically in machine learning, this is a conversation you have on a very regular basis. Now, while AI ML in itself is probably a little confusing for a lot of people, a conversation so detailed as you just mentioned around responsible AI might be a little difficult, right? How do you have a conversation with the customer in such a case, right? How do you kind of convince them that there are these elements of responsible AI, which all of it are very, very crucial for the success of your AI ML project without complicating things too much and getting a buy-in from them?
Yeah, exactly. So typically, EasyML comes in a variety of stages of AI ML. I'll pick one, which we've seen. Enterprise has implemented an ML model. It's doing decision AI in a workflow. The subject matter experts are unhappy. They second guess the predictions. They can't relate to the predictions. And so the promised return on investment, the business objectives are not being delivered. So their question is, can you help us put this whole AI project back on the rails? And what we do then is say, instead of talk responsible AI holistically, which you're right, is a massive term, we pick out constituent piece parts to say, okay, you've got a model, and for some reason, its predictions are being doubted. So what we will do is we will have this model launch an API call, EasyML explainable AI module. What comes back are the reasons behind each prediction along with the explainability score. So now parse each one of these. The reasons behind each prediction means, let's say Kashyap is the subject matter expert. He doubts that particular prediction, says, no, I disagree. Can you tell me why you made that prediction? The reasons come back, takes a look. I think it makes sense now that you explained me. You've reconciled the difference. In other words, the model has started to earn your trust. And that is key to success of any project, including AI projects. And the explainability score that comes along with it is also very important. Maybe in future I can talk about that. Why is that also critical? But the operative word here is trust through transparency. So their existing AI project, which is not delivering to promise, now can.
One of the things that you mentioned at the start of the process as well is that responsible AI is not just enabling trust, it was also enabling ROI, which is very interesting for me, right? While indirectly, I can definitely see a relationship between the two factors, but can you elaborate a little bit more to help our audience understand how does trust or other factors of responsible AI drive return on investment?
Not every prediction is made with equal certainty. The model makes a prediction because the model has been trained by training data. Some predictions are, well, I'm positive about that. Others are, I think it's right. And there are some that are like, maybe not. All right. If you do not specify a score accompanying each prediction that says how certain is the model, then the user, the subject matter expert who's consuming this information, right, assumes every prediction is made with 100% certainty. The model's predicted, it thinks it's right. So the ROI piece, so imagine, just think about this. A user says every prediction, because I don't see any score, a confidence score, explainability score accompanying this, I'm going to assume every prediction is right. Of course, some of them he agrees with, he or she agrees with, some of them he or she disagrees with. And now, so they are torn. They're like, I don't know, should I trust this? Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not right. I don't know if I should trust this. No. Fast forward to responsible AI's confidence scoring or explainability score that I talked about. You set the threshold based on users, enterprises' tolerance of threshold or business processes threshold, tolerance for error. Anything that exceeds this is predicted to the user with a green tick. And of course, the user is skeptic initially. Over 6-month period, the proof's in the pudding. They'll evaluate and say, yeah, you know what? Every time this model makes a prediction with a green tick, it's almost always right. Anything that's below this threshold, the score that accompanies the prediction, is accompanied with a red question mark, which means park it on the side, let the user inspect. So now here's the ROI. All the green tick leads to partial automation because the user says, I don't need to inspect those. Driving efficiencies, reducing costs, delivering business objectives, and the promised ROI in the business case.
AI is not the AI which we saw 10 years back, right? What the artificial intelligence, while the term has been there for more than 30 years, we have always had...
Now, right? With generative AI.
Yeah, I mean, generative AI is one aspect. As we enter 2025, it will be agentic AI, and we will have more and more versions of AI as we go. I've been studying this space for the last 7, 8 years, and I've seen a newer term come every year. While the fundamentals remain same, does that mean the same thing for responsible AI? Does fundamentally responsible AI change when it comes to this thing? And how does responsible AI need to evolve with the changing landscape of AI itself?
The basics of how humans and machines coexist remain the same, right? And responsible AI is the glue that binds humans and machines in an environment, because for the foreseeable future, we will have humans, human colleagues and digital colleagues coexist in an enterprise, in the workplace. So let's look at what's hot and popular these days, generative AI, and see how certain components of responsible AI that we talked in context of classical AI map to generative AI as well. Let's pick one of them. Let's pick, for instance, let's start with transparency, and then we'll move on to accountability. You have asked a question, a query of the LLM or your agent. The agent comes back, completes the task, or the LLM comes back, depending on what your use case is, with a response. How do you know? Can the LLM be transparent to say, this is where I got the response from, so that I can trust it? In other words, can it point to the source documents, maybe with yellow highlighter on the relevant sentences, that says, these are what led to the response, so that I, as a consumer, feel comfortable that I'm not being misled? Transparency. Be very transparent on how you got the response, the prediction, the source. Look at accountability. The model must not mislead. The LLM must not mislead. Well, can the LLM not have, very similarly, a confidence score accompanying each of its responses? EasyML has augmented the LLM response with the confidence score between 0 and 1 again. And you define your threshold, that threshold that we talked about, to say, above this, I can trust, and I'll let it flow downstream for consumption without me interfering. Any confidence score below this for the LLM response, park it on the side for human evaluation before we let it go downstream, because we don't want to mislead people. So accountability. The model is accountable. It's spitting out a score so as to not mislead you, telling you how confident it is of the answer that it has provided. See some of those same components mapping onto generative AI, because the underlying concept of trust and ROI and delivery of business objectives, whether it's classical AI, generative AI, or whatever else AI, remain. Those never go away.
One of my final questions to you is, right, considering the complex landscape of responsible AI and some of the things that you just mentioned, what must a customer keep in mind when selecting a vendor for responsible AI? Also, beyond that, are customers, in the sense that large enterprises, capable of building responsible AI frameworks by themselves, or is it necessary for them to consult beyond their this thing, and they're not able to kind of build their own capacity in ensuring the responsible AI, responsibility around the AI? And what are some of the other factors that they need to consider when considering whether they should build or buy the services for this particular?
Couple of things. Number one, show me. The AI is becoming this big morass that's very difficult to grapple with lots of promises and moving at speed of light. Show me that it delivers in my business environment. So put a vendor through the test, through the ringer. Just PowerPoints will not do it. Number two, When evaluating a vendor, ask them that this is my business problem. Tell me how your specific solution, the solution could be a platform like EasyML, or solution could be executables, right? Utility functions, and EasyML is available as both. Tell me how those things can solve the specific problem that I am encountering. These hard questions need to be asked. All right. And if they satisfy, yeah, okay, this is how I'm going to do it, makes sense, then okay, then show me that you can do it. All right. That's important before you sign on any vendor. There's a lot of moving parts to AI. Once you get the vendor selected, then it is vitally important that the vendor be as committed to delivering to your business objective. It's not that I provide the product and now you provide the resources to make it happen. No, the vendor should be in collaboration with your technical team, delivering to the business objective, so that your technical team is getting trained on the product, so that in future they can deliver on themselves, by themselves. That is absolutely key. This collaborative approach is a must for the enterprise to recognize the value of signing on to any solution, without which there can be, there are lots of AI projects where, you said build versus buy. There are some things, large vendors like GCP, Azure, AWS, their services can provide, right? Very sophisticated. But there are niches. We mentioned explainable AI. We mentioned explainability score. Now that's an EasyML pattern. Why is that required? We kind of saw that thresholding, right? And so unless you developing it on your own would really mean that you are developing a skill set equivalent to research in this particular area. So those kinds of niche, you have a primary vendor like a Microsoft or a Google, and then you import those niche to augment what this major vendor provides in specific areas, and then collaborate with those niche areas and niche area vendors to deliver that objective with the major vendor and their niche solutions that you have bought from these other vendors for specific things that your solution needs.
Fantastic. On that sound note, Deepak, thank you so much for making the time. I had a wonderful time understanding your perspective around responsible AI. I hope you had fun as well.
Me too. Very much. Likewise, Kashyap.